Yeah, so CoverWallet it's a digital insurance brokerage, and really the goal is to help clients manage their insurance, purchase that insurance, and then request any changes to that insurance digitally within the small to medium enterprise. It's a little bit different than what CoverWallet is. It started off kind of like a copy and paste of what we were doing within CoverWallet when we started this team, and what we found was that this group of clients has a much bigger need. And that's really what we've been focused on for the last 3 years, is how to make servicing these clients more efficient for account executives. And then how do we improve the experience that these clients have?
Welcome to Business Ninjas, brought to you by WriteForMe, where you'll hear from business leaders who are out there growing their business and slaying it every day. Learn from the masters. Let's get started.
Hey everybody, this is Max Tibbin from WriteForMe, and you're listening to another episode of the Business Ninjas podcast. We meet the experts who are making things happen and scaling their businesses. And today we're talking about AON with Alan Ingrassio, who is the Executive Account Director at AON. Alan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
So AON, a big player in the insurance and risk management space. So I'm really excited to talk about what's going on there. But before we jump into the organization and your role, the Business Ninjas community is built of entrepreneurs, executives, sales and marketing leaders as well. So as the account executive director at AON, tell the Business Ninjas community a little bit about yourself and what you're focused on, and a little bit about your role.
Yeah, absolutely. So I essentially lead a hub within our AON organization that services small to medium enterprises. And really what we're servicing is for their P&C, their management liability, and really a risk management. And what a director does is kind of just work with leadership, senior leadership, to kind of set the vision and understand what we need to achieve moving forward, and then work directly with managers and account executives to work towards servicing clients and achieving our goals.
Gotcha. Well, so it sounds like there's a mixture of focus on current customers and obviously premiums, renewals, right? Is that your focus too, or is it going to be spread to net new customers as well with the team?
So on existing clients, and we're also looking at building the portfolio with new clients, as well as making sure we're rounding out our current clients to make sure they're properly covered.
Mm-hmm. And you've been in this space for about 8 years, right? So you didn't necessarily start out, in this space. How did you get started in the industry, and how did you get to where you are now?
Yeah, so short answer to that is sales. So I left college early. It really wasn't for me, not my best way of learning. Got into real estate, and not buying real estate, but as a realtor. And did that for a little while. I had, I would say, mild success for a 19-year-old. And then moved into financial services, mainly life insurance. And that's where I cut my teeth cold calling. So huge shout out to everybody out there that's doing cold calling. Keep with it. It's a massive skill for you. And you're going to be able to use it in really a lot of areas of your life and business. Eventually I made my way over after that into a local payroll company. They provided insurance as an extra solution for their payroll clients. And then from there, connected with CoverWallet and joined that team as an advisor. So I'm just kind of giving a little bit more background on how I got to where I am today. I started as an advisor with CoverWallet, and it was really a small company when I joined, and it really started to grow within the Rochester office, which is where I'm located, and had opportunities to become a team lead, and then turned into a manager, and then continued working at that for a few years until we were eventually acquired by AON, where I was tapped on the shoulder to lead this team.
Very cool. Yeah, cold calling definitely is that it's an acquired skill. It's not for the faint of heart either, and it's something that all of us salespeople had to do at some point. So yes, I would totally agree. And you mentioned CoverWallet. What is CoverWallet specifically? What is the focus, and who do you guys partner with?
Yeah, so CoverWallet it's a digital insurance brokerage. And really the goal is to help clients manage their insurance, purchase that insurance, and then, request any changes to that insurance digitally. So we're kind of this team that we had here within the small to medium enterprise is a little bit different than what CoverWallet is. It started off kind of like a copy and paste of what we were doing within CoverWallet when we started this team. And what we found was that this group of clients has a much bigger need. And that's really what we've been focused on for the last 3 years is how do we make servicing these clients more efficient for account executives, and then how do we improve the experience that these clients have? And it gets me thinking, kind of like nobody really owns this space, this kind of under $100 million in client revenue. Nobody's really owning this space yet. It's kind of spread throughout all agencies and brokerages, and we see it as a huge opportunity because when you look at that larger client, $1 million premiums, 1.52 million and up, and just getting larger and larger in premiums, there's a lot of revenue there, right? So agencies and brokerages and carriers and risk managers, they can throw a lot of resources at those clients. But when you get into the smaller segment, the resources aren't as abundant, right? Like we can throw resources at what our clients need, but eventually it's going to cost us money. So what we're doing is we're focusing on ways to make it simpler for account executives to service these clients so that they can focus more on managing the risks for these insureds.
So what are the things, I guess, Alan, that leaders, or like what are the types of things that leaders should be doing to service and continue those relationships and continue to get those premiums to them? What are those types of things that you guys are doing internally?
So I think first and foremost, it starts with a belief system, right? You have the vision of the company, and then you have your individual teams, right? We're made up of 5 different hubs, and then within there's different managers and team leaders that are managing account executives directly, right? So if you look at what the organization is, there's a vision, and it's something that we all need to get in line with. So what we need to do is create belief systems, and I think the best way to do that, I've had this conversation with new managers, I had this conversation with experienced managers, and I think what we need to focus on is setting proper expectations, and that can be a wide array of things. That could be just your service expectation. It could be what the new processes are, right? That's a new expectation. So that needs to be properly set, and you have to remind everybody of what those expectations are. It's kind of like if I wear a black shirt on Monday, and then I wear a black shirt on Tuesday, and I don't wear another black shirt, people might think, boy, he doesn't wash his shirt. But if I wear a black shirt every single day, everybody understands the expectations that I'm going to wear a black shirt. So it's kind of the same thing. You can't just set an expectation and forget about it. And I think, guilty of it ourselves here, right? But a lot of organizations, we set goals at the beginning of years, and then maybe we never look at them again. And now we go up for performance reviews at the end of the year, and it's all right, these were our goals, right? It's very important that expectation is set. And then it's feedback back, right? So you've got expectations and you've got feedback. It's feedback in and it's feedback out. It's not just leaders giving feedback to their team on how they can improve in coaching, right? It's essential we hear back from our team on what's happening with the business, what's happening with your clients, what's happening with the system, where can we improve? We actually made a huge investment. We created a new role last year specifically for that. How can we use somebody internally to work with the AEs directly, work with managers directly to take feedback in, go to our product team and start building things. So much so that team is now growing, which is very exciting because there's definitely improvement in what we're doing. And then finally, it's the accountability piece. And accountability, I think, is an interesting topic. Everybody thinks of accountability kind of in a negative light. But accountability is holding the team accountable to what the expectations are, yes. Holding yourself accountable to what your expectations are and what the vision of the company is. And then it's working with other groups, right? AON's got 50,000 colleagues. So while our team does a great job of holding each other accountable, down and up and down and down and up, other teams maybe don't have that same that same kind of environment, right? So now they're working with other teams that may affect us, but there's a different type of accountability, or maybe it's our understanding of their expectations, right? If we don't understand what their expectations are, now we're holding them accountable to something that's not necessarily an expectation of theirs, right? So it's important we have that communication back and forth, and ultimately, that's what builds a belief system. And that's why it's so important that as leaders in what we're doing, we're focused on what the vision is and what we're trying to accomplish internally for account executives and what we're trying to accomplish for clients.
So it sounds like, if I'm hearing you correctly, that the belief systems, or almost like the core values or leadership principles at AON, are going to be ensuring that proper expectations are being set across the teams. There's accountability there. And then there's an openness to learn and kind of seek feedback to grow. What would you say? I kind of summarized that appropriately?
Absolutely. The thing I would say to what you were saying is, like, principles are kind of what we're trying to achieve, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the belief system is more of a barometer of what's happening, right? Like, what does your team think? We all have to do stuff we don't like. We all have to, as leaders, we all have to communicate and move forward on things that maybe we don't necessarily agree with. We're just not always going to agree, and sometimes it's just because that's the direction the company needs to go, and we need to go that direction. The belief system of what your team has is going to show, as a leader, how you communicated that to them. You set the expectation to make them believe something like that. And I'm not saying people don't have their own opinions, but it's our responsibility to try and get people on board and make sure they understand the why, right? Like, I tell my leaders all the time, if you're going to communicate anything, it's what, why, and how. Otherwise, there's no expectation, and they don't know what's happening. So yes, to your point, it's kind of a barometer of what those principles of what you're trying to achieve.
Well, yeah, I mean, it just sounds like, from my perspective, you guys are pushing for really high standards for your team, right?
Yeah.
And you're trying to be like an industry disruptor almost, with the types of standards that you're setting, and trying to raise the bar and trying to push people to do their best work, right? So, let's talk really quickly about your team. And, since it sounds like that the team is growing, the sales team specifically, or the advisory team, how do you hold people to their expectations? Like, what types of, or how are you tracking goals, like, throughout the year? What types of KPIs are you tracking? How are you guys doing that?
Yeah. I'm not going to talk about all of them. I think there's a lot, right? And there's some that are actual metrics, and some that are more of a conversation and how we handle ourselves and how we communicate to clients. We meet as an entire group. We call it the Victor Hub. We meet once a week and go through email SLAs. So we track how responsive we are to our clients. We track voicemail and missed call SLAs. Are we following up with our clients when they leave us a call? We track the number of calls we're making to make sure we're actually communicating with clients, and we're not just responding to emails, because you can't build a relationship that way. A lot of people hear that and are like, wow, you guys really micromanage the team. And that's not the point. The point of it, most of our team is well within the standard. The point is to have visibility on what's happening with the business. We rely very heavily internally on our other teams within AON to help us grow our business. And in order to do that, we do need to have a high standard. AON has a very high standard. We're dealing with clients that are, very, very large. And in order for us to get buy-in from those groups, we do need to be responding, and we want to know what's happening and why. So those are some of, like, the service level metrics. And then we look at, how are we performing from an account retention standpoint? How are we performing from a revenue standpoint, both on retention and, cross-sell and new business, cross-sell, like selling a current client a new policy. So we look at all of those metrics as well.
Gotcha. That's helpful. So sounds like at a high level, the SLAs are, time to reply, kind of the typical sales data that you look at. How many potential people reached out, how long did it take us to get back in front of them, how many people did we reach out to, what was our reply rate? So kind of looking at that overarching kind of micro data that comes from sales. But as a manager, like, what skill sets do you think, like, managers should be focused on as well, in addition to some of that sales data?
Yeah, so I think the it reminds me of a story. When I first started, when I first got a manager role, I was a team leader before that, but it wasn't the same as when I became the manager. It was definitely more accountability for me to get the team to perform. And I remember my first month, I was given 4 brand new advisors that had never served an insurance policy before. And then 4 advisors that were brand new to the organization, had insurance experience, but not really any idea of our systems and processes that we had in place. And I remember we finished the month, and it was late. I was sitting in the office, kind of beaten, right? We achieved like 88% target, didn't make it. And at the time, my director of sales there said, what's going on? What's wrong? I go, well, we missed pretty badly too. And he goes, "Look, you did better than I thought you would do." And I kind of was taken aback, right? Because anybody in sales would say, hey, the numbers will matter. Results are what matter. And that's true. But what he reminded me was, you have a brand new team. You did, I think it was somewhere around 220 direct hours that month in coaching. So listening to live phone calls and like coaching through the call, coaching after the call. I had one-on-one meetings with everybody regularly to really understand their pipeline and drive things forward. We were meeting every single day as a team, and we had a really good like camaraderie. And I, at the time, like going back to belief systems, I didn't even realize I was doing it. I was kind of just like, this is terrifying. Let me read as many books as I can to figure out what I can do, and let me take advice from all of the leaders that we had within the organization. And it kind of came to all of this. And he said, that's kind of like, you have to define what success is. Like, the results are success, but you have to define what success is outside of those results, because essentially everything I had built in that month was something that I continued to do month over month with the team, and we didn't miss quota once after that. So to his point, he let me know that I needed to find success as more than just the result.
Sure. Yeah, it sounds like it's almost the intangibles, almost, right? The X's and O's, and hearing and listening and giving that feedback. By the way, I love that. Like, that's for me how I learn the best. Like, hey, coach me on what I did great and what you would expect out of someone like myself, and then where can I improve? What did I miss? So that way when I hear it next time around, like I'm able to come in and have a better conversation, have a better reply, or handle that objection better. Like, that's for me, like how I like to learn. So it makes sense why the team would kind of praise you for what you were doing, and then kind of see the fruit of your work kind of come to fruition, the quarters after that.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are some of the biggest challenges then today that the team is facing? Like, what are you guys working on today as a team?
The needs of our clients, I think, are always evolving.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things we're working on is having better relationship with our partners outside of internally. So like carrier partners, for example. So, I mentioned, I touched on it earlier in the call, like the resources available for these clients isn't as abundant because of the revenue tied to it. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to leverage our partners to give us, better products that allow us to service clients that may have needs that are outside of kind of a typical small business need. And if I could think of an example, we recently had a client, they had some losses that were really just not within their control. They were bad losses, and it was really affecting the loss ratio. Or essentially, a loss ratio is, here's the revenue to the carrier, and then these are the losses. What's the impact on that? Like, that's their loss ratio. So it was very high, and it was very challenging to get coverage for the insured. So what we did, we had to get very, very creative, and what we did was we focused on, what is causing the losses, and is it something that the insured could change within their operating model? And then at the same time, we were discussing with some of our internal risk consultants on what are some things we can do to better their situation moving forward. And because of the relationship we've built with that carrier in this segment, they were able to accept those changes, and they over overturn their declination, we were able to get coverage for the insured. And I think that's like in the vein of what we want to accomplish for these insureds, which I think we're on the right track to doing that.
I mean, you guys are solving real business challenges.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If they couldn't get insurance, they'd probably have to go out of business, right? And that's a real thing.
And I've heard loss ratio. I'm not familiar with that, but is that like one of the biggest challenges you guys look to solve for your customers?
No, I don't think that's. I mean, yes and no. I think it's really hard to say. There's a lot that goes on with insurers, especially some of our businesses international, right? So for the international businesses, it's going to be a different need than for maybe a quote unquote local client. So loss ratio is a big one, right? If there's a lot of claims, that's going to be a big challenge to overcome because we can't control the outcome. We can negotiate and we can work with the insureds and to put them into the best light for the carrier, but we can't control that outcome. And that becomes very challenging.
Mm-hmm. So what are some like the top like verticals you service? Like what are some of those good customers look like? Who are some of the new customers or industries you guys might be going after as well?
It's really kind of general. I wouldn't say that there's a specific vertical that we're in right now within our space. AON has different verticals all throughout the organization, but within our space, we're kind of in a general market. We're really looking for insureds that are in that, around that 100 million in revenue and below. And we partner very closely with our field offices within AON to make sure that, our clients are being serviced by the right team. And that's both our way and up and their way and over to us.
Gotcha. So it sounds like it's more or less like a revenue metric, or what about like number of claims type metric? Do you guys look at that as potentially?
No. Yeah. No, it's really like a product type, and kind of a revenue threshold or a premium threshold in some cases, depending on what the situation is.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. And you mentioned that you guys work internationally as well. Like how has that affected the growth of the business?
Well, I think what we do internationally is, one of my managers said this a little while back, and I just absolutely love it. Like, we're not necessarily the quarterback in a lot of cases. We're like the left tackle, right? Like we are essential to protecting the quarterback, and that's kind of how we can be used within the international, or we call it like a reverse flow business, right? Like it's a headquartered company out of Germany, and they just opened up or they just bought a U.S. entity. German insurance is much different than U.S. insurance. So we come into play to help service that local client, which is very small compared to the international organization, at least to scale. Some of those businesses are very, very large. I wouldn't say that in a derogatory way. I just mean that it's not as, it's not the headquarters.
Makes sense. Yeah, just kind of curious because I know there's a focus obviously here in the U.S., but you mentioned international, so I was just kind of curious how that focus.
Yes.
So what's something that you guys, maybe you could talk a little bit about from your team perspective, and how you guys are managing clients internally on your own on your own kind of core entity of the piece of your own business. But just kind of curious, like what's something that you guys want to be celebrating a year from now, and then maybe from a macro level, what's something that AON wants to be celebrating a year from now?
I think a year from now, without getting into all the nitty details here, a year from now, we want to be servicing clients even better, and we want to be doing that with more automation.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of technology that we can utilize from what we've built before we were acquired by AON, and it's great, but we want to also make sure that we do it within AON for these small to medium clients. So that's really a number one goal, I think, in my eyes, for what we want to achieve this year, and it would be great if we can get there.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that really quick. Like, how are you wanting to do more with automation? Are you talking about like ChatGPT and like automating some of your processes, or trying to use some of those tools to like help in doing some more mundane tasks or email writing, right? Like, what do you guys try to do with automation?
Well, not that. So it's gonna be more of like, how are we getting service requests? So certificates of insurance, invoices, there's a lot we can do there to clean up the experience for clients and make it faster.
Mm-hmm. Have you guys thought about as a team, like how to leverage a tool like a ChatGPT at all?
Maybe the product team has, I don't know. That I haven't thought about, no.
Because we're exploring it here internally for our sales team already. Whether that's helping to develop like a comp plan, like ChatGPT is actually fairly good at that.
Okay.
And even like helping with our, pipeline process and how to organize a pipeline. Like it's kind of like it's a useful tool for like experimentation, to be honest. It's something that we're testing out both on the sales process side and on our content side of the business as well, with helping with like that creativity and trying to utilize different prompts to generate different ideas that our teams can kind of utilize when they generating content at scale too. So now we're not using it to generate actually anything like that's going to be customer facing around on the web. It's more or less a tool to help us with our own productivity throughout the day. So it's kind of interesting to see like how, we're at kind of the forefront of this, almost as like how computers and Apple was at the forefront in the 1980s for a lot of companies, and trying to see how they adopted the new technology. I think that's kind of where we are, and it's all happening really fast.
Yeah. Well, that is true. I mean, ChatGPT 4 or GPT-4 just launched or whatever it is. I can't keep up.
Yeah. For sure. Well, as we wrap things up here, Alan, like, is there anything else that, you think our listeners should know, or anything that we haven't covered thus far?
No. I mean, if you want to connect, if you want to reach out, hear more about what we're doing, just discuss anything really. You can find me on LinkedIn at Alan Ingrassio, and I'd be happy to chat.
Absolutely. Are you going to be anywhere, any conferences? You're going to be traveling anywhere where people can find you?
Not right now.
Well, the AON brand's very, very familiar, right? You guys are a big organization, work with large organizations and customers, and what you guys provide is definitely essential from what it sounds like. And, you guys are major players in the space. So ideally, hopefully, any customers who, are kind of 100 million revenue and around there, who have, who might be a fit, definitely reach out to Alan and the team and see if they can make some introductions if you guys are looking to change providers.
Awesome. Thank you, Bex.
Yeah, I appreciate your time, Alan. It was great chatting with you, and I really enjoyed the conversation. I feel like I've learned a lot about you and what you guys are doing at AON and within your part of the organization as well. So I appreciate you being here and being a part of the Business Ninjas podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah, that wraps up another episode of the Business Ninjas podcast. Everyone have a great rest of the day. Cheers.